أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. What's up, y'all? Today, it's your boy Atta with another episode of Sidewalk and Gutter University, Swag University, where we graduate the streets through knowledge of self. Knowledge of self is the greatest knowledge that can ever be, that will ever be. And knowledge of self is two-faceted. There's the historical self that deals with your lineage, your genealogy, your ethnicity, your culture, its customs. So it's that part, the language of your family and all of that. And then you have, so that's the historical. Then you have the ahistorical, and the ahistorical is beyond time. It's who you are. It's really the reality of who you are in the universe, before time and after time, pre-eternal and post-eternal, right? So, in that regard, I want to read y'all an excerpt from a book, one of my favorite books, called Starseed Transmission by Ken Carey. I believe this book was written in the winter of 1977/78, like December 77 to 78, I believe, if I remember correctly. He said he was in a room in the Midwest and some angelic beings came to communicate to him. And they uploaded these messages to his consciousness, and this is what came out. This is part of part of the first chapter. This says this is angelic beings explaining to him who we are as human beings. So it says, in your natural state of being, you have no sense identity distinct. In your natural state of being, you have no sense of identity distinct from the Creator, except when you are engaged in a relationship. On this level of being, identity comes into focus only in the context of a relationship with some other aspect of being that has become objectified. Much as my identity as an angelic messenger comes into being through my relationship with you. When such a relationship is not taking place, that particular expression of you simply does not exist. You float effortlessly in the potential of God. You are not annihilated, but all definitions of you are. And you are released from their restraining influence, allowed to expand into a state of love and perfection. By and by, if it should happen that you are needed for a particular function, you will still be there. For your form identity is a specific cell in a specific organ of a larger being. When the next energizing impulse comes, it also brings your definition and instruction. You come into the necessary degree of focus for whatever is required. Throughout the course of your existence, you continually oscillate like the wave function that you essentially are, in and out of focus, in and out of definition, always moving back and forth like the pendulum on a clock or the heart of an atom, out of unity of being with God into an infinite expression of God's, out of unity of being with God into a finite expression of God's infinite potential, and then back into unity once more. Back and forth, back and forth. This is the natural rhythm of your existence, just as it is of mine. It is the song of God, the rhythm of life itself. Whenever divine impulses calls upon your services and brings you into form, you encounter other beings of an infinite variety on errands and excursions in worlds of love and light that are impossible to describe. As this happens, you experience for the duration of your contact both an identity in a linear time world. But in the course of your encounter, you are still aware of your unity with the Creator. You do not lose this certainty of your oneness with God. You are aware of your form identity and of the motion of time, yet you oscillate faster than the speed of light back and forth between your pre-manifest state and your species role form. God, the one substance. Okay, so this is from another book. So that right there concludes the excerpt from Starseed Transmission by Ken Carey. What a beautiful excerpt. I'm sure all of you all will concur. The next one is an excerpt from The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. And it goes as thus. It says, God, the one substance, is trying to live and do and enjoy things through humanity. He is saying, I want hands to build wonderful structures, to play divine harmonies and paint glorious pictures. I want feet to run my errands, eyes to see my beauties, tongues to tell mighty truths, and sing marvelous songs. Now, what I take from these is what's called, both of these excerpts point up to an idea in philosophy called unity of being. Unity of being. Now, in philosophy, and like especially religious philosophy, they have what's called different types of being. One is necessary being. That's the being that is required for all possible beings to come into existence. So in philosophy, God is a necessary being, because God is a necessary being, and all creation are possible beings because they have a beginning and they have an end. They don't have to exist, but they can exist, right? But in spirituality, there's another idea called the oneness of being, and that's what these are getting at, right? It's like taking away the distinction between possible and necessary, and the distinction between us and God, and now it's telling us about the unity between us and God. Like, there is no separation between us and God. And what I love about this is, like, there's a saying in Sufism that in the end, God just loves himself. Like when a man loves a woman, or a woman loves a man, it's just God loving himself. And that's essentially what this is saying, is like God has, like, we are all manifestations of God's infinite power. And our relationship is just different relationships of God with himself. And this is the knowledge of self that I'm talking about, the ahistorical knowledge of self that sets us free, because it sets us free beyond race, religion, culture. It sets us free beyond time and space. It sets us free, so it's beyond the world. It transcends the physical world that we living in, because it's not bound by time. Like I remember working with this girl at this. It was actually, if you guys are familiar with halal bros or halal guys in Long Beach, California. And I remember she was saying, she said it like with the super conviction. She said, I'm Mexican. And like I felt her too, right? But then I thought about it, and I'm saying, like, well, what would you say? How could you speak what is another way of, or what identity could you ascribe to, or could you say that 200 years ago or 500 years ago? Because there was no country called Mexico. Just like white and black. White and black wasn't like these time-bound concepts of identity. They're transient, they're temporary, and two, they're divisive. So it's like, yes, they're cool to ascribe to, but in the end, in the bigger scheme of things, we all have an identity that transcends time and space, that unifies us, and that's the identity that we are committed to exploring here on Sidewalk University, where we graduate the streets through knowledge of self. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم إنه هو الغفور الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر